What if I told you that the real biological secret to those incredibly popular $1,000 a month weight loss shots, the profound appetite suppression, the cellular reset, that effortless calorie reduction, what if all of that isn't actually found in a pre-filled pharmaceutical syringe? What if, and bear with me here, the exact mechanism those drugs target is already sitting right now just waiting to be unlocked in your kitchen skillet?
I mean, it sounds like a wildly exaggerated claim, right? Until you actually look under the hood of human digestion and, well, cellular biology, because when you understand the mechanisms, it's not magic at all. It's just forgotten science.
Welcome to today's custom-tailored deep dive. We know you. You are the learner. You're here because you want to gain knowledge quickly, but you absolutely refuse to sacrifice the depth. You want to avoid that suffocating feeling of information overload, but you're actively hunting for those genuine aha moments that actually change the way you navigate your daily life. And today, man, we have a profound one for you. Our roadmap for this entire conversation comes directly from the transcript of a brilliant exploration on the Ultimate Human podcast with Gary Brecka, specifically episode TUH 134.
Yeah, and the specific physiological mechanics that they unpack in that discussion, they completely dismantle the conventional wisdom that most of us were, taught in high school health class.
Exactly. Our mission today is to completely tear down and then rebuild how you think about food. We need to obliterate the idea that nutrition is just about what you chew and swallow. Because usually, when we talk about eating a healthy diet, there's this expectation of simple, cold mathematics, like an accountant's ledger, right? You consume a certain number of calories, you burn a certain number of calories, and the nutritional label on the back of the cardboard box just points to the math and says, there it is, you did it.
Right. It's treated as purely binary, calories in, calories out. If you eat 1,000 calories of spinach or 1,000 calories of, processed sugar, the ledger simply records 1,000 calories.
And it feels clean. It feels controllable. But then you step into the world of actual human biology, into the microscopic, just methy reality of how our cells operate, and suddenly that accountant's ledger is completely worthless. We're looking at a nutritional landscape that is entirely misunderstood by the average person wandering the grocery store aisles. So we have to fundamentally redefine the metric of healthy eating. We have to introduce the concept of bioavailability.
Yeah. Bioavailability is the foundational bedrock of this entire paradigm shift. To define it clearly, bioavailability is the exact measure of how well your body can actually extract, absorb, and utilize the nutrients hidden within the food you eat. It has absolutely nothing to do with the gross tonnage of vitamins or proteins sitting on your dinner plate.
It's just the net yield.
Exactly. It is exclusively about the net yield that actually crosses the intestinal wall, makes it into your bloodstream, and penetrates your cells.
Okay, let's unpack this with a mechanical analogy, because counting calories or tracking macros without considering bioavailability, it's like bringing a massive pile of foreign currency to your local grocery store.
Oh, I like that.
Right. If you walk in with $1 million foreign dollars, you technically have a lot of money. That's your gross input, your plate of food. But the cashier can't accept it. You have to take it to an exchange counter, pay a massive conversion fee, wait for the processing, and by the time you get the local currency your body actually uses, you've lost most of the value. The gross input was high, but the net purchasing power was terrible.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. And if we connect this to the everyday experience of the listener, it explains so much of our modern malaise. Think about the person who feels constantly exhausted, who experiences mid-afternoon brain fog, who struggles to recover from a mild workout even when their diet app says they hit all their daily macros perfectly.
They're doing everything right on paper.
Exactly. They are looking at the gross input, but their net absorption is failing them. The biological reality is that the act of eating does not automatically equal the act of nourishing.
Right. And this brings us to a massive, just counterintuitive statistic from the source. When we look at animal-based foods, they're considered absolute nutrient-dense powerhouses. Why? Because their protein absorption rate, their bioavailability can be as high as 90%.
90%. That is a staggering efficiency rate. It means your body recognizes the nutrient, skips the lengthy currency exchange process you mentioned, and shuttles it directly into the bloodstream to be used. But what's really fascinating here is when you contrast that with plant-based foods, the source notes that plant-based foods often have significantly lower bioavailability.
Wait, hold on. Let me push back on this because I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. You're telling me my body absorbs meat protein at 90%, but the massive bowl of kale or the black beans I'm forcing myself to eat are barely moving the needle. That goes against literally every piece of plants are always better dietary dogma we've been fed for decades. How is that biochemically possible?
It's a great question, and it comes down to cellular defense mechanisms. It's not that the nutrients aren't present in the plants. They absolutely are. But plants are stationary organisms, right? They can't run away from predators, so they evolved chemical defenses, things like phytates, oxalates, and complex cellulose walls.
They fight back chemically.
Precisely. When you eat those plants, those defensive compounds essentially bind to the minerals and proteins, trapping them. Your human digestive tract, which is relatively short compared to an herbivore like a cow, simply doesn't have the specialized enzymes or the fermentation vats required to break down those defenses efficiently. You extract what you can, but a massive percentage passes right through you, entirely unabsorbed.
So sticking with our currency analogy, the plant nutrients are locked inside a safe, and we only have the combination for the outer door, not the inner vault. But with animal protein, the vault is already open.
Exactly. The animal has already done the hard biological work of breaking down those plant defenses, converting the raw materials into highly bioavailable tissue. And this isn't just about having energy for a quick run. Your body has to physically utilize these nutrients to perform at its peak, mentally, emotionally, and physically. Every single second, millions of cells in your body are dying and needing to be replaced. If your nutrient bioavailability is low, your cellular regeneration is fundamentally compromised at a structural level.
Which perfectly brings us to the next logical question. If we are absorbing this animal-based fuel at an incredible 90% rate, what exactly is crossing that barrier into our bloodstream? We are talking about the fundamental building blocks of life here, amino acids.
This is where the chemistry of the human body becomes incredibly elegant. Meat provides what biochemists call complete proteins. A complete protein is one that contains every single one of the essential amino acids that the human body simply cannot synthesize on its own. We are biologically mandated to source them externally.
So if amino acids are the individual bricks that build our bodily house, are some types of meat better bricklayers than others? Like, is a chicken breast identical to a ribeye in the eyes of our cells?
Oh, absolutely not. The nutrient profiles vary wildly. Red meats, specifically things like beef and lamb, are heavily elevated as the gold standard for protein bioavailability. But there is a massive caveat attached to this. You cannot just buy the cheapest mass-produced beef on the shelf and expect cellular optimization. The source specifically warns that you must look for grass-fed and grass-finished meat over commercially raised animals.
I'm glad you brought that up because it gets incredibly passionate about this point. Commercial feed, the corn, the wheat, the soy, it's essentially classified as biological garbage for these animals. But why? If a cow eats corn and gets fat, isn't it still just beef?
Mechanistically, no. It fundamentally alters the biological makeup of the animal. A cow is a ruminant. Its digestive system is specifically evolved to ferment grass. When you force-feed a cow a diet of high-sugar corn and soy, it severely inflames the animal's gut. Yeah, and this unnatural diet completely warps the fatty acid profile of the meat, drastically increasing inflammatory compounds and reducing the density of those critical amino acids. An animal fed on its natural evolutionary diet produces meat with a vastly superior, highly bioavailable amino acid matrix.
Okay, so we have the pristine grass-fed bricks. But let's ground this for the listener. What are these amino acids actually building? Because the immediate assumption is just, oh, it builds muscle for the gym. It's just about biceps and glutes.
Right, but it goes so far beyond skeletal muscle. Yes, these amino acids are critical for muscle protein synthesis, which is vital for preventing frailty as we age, but they are also the literal building blocks for tissue repair across your organ systems. They build collagen, which is the structural scaffolding for your skin, your tendons, and your joints. Without them, your joints ache and your skin loses elasticity. They build elastin, which gives your blood vessels their flexibility, directly impacting your cardiovascular health.
Wait, I remember reading about fibrin as well in the source text. What is that?
Fibrin is a protein involved in the clotting of blood. Without the right bioavailable amino acids, your body struggles to repair vascular microtears. And incredibly, these amino acids are required to build natural killer cells.
Natural killer cells. Wait, our immune system is literally built out of the amino acids we absorb from a steak.
Exactly. We tend to think of the immune system as this nebulous, invisible force field. It's not. It is a physical, structural army of cells. A natural killer cell is a type of white blood cell that physically patrols your body, identifies virally infected cells or early-stage tumor cells, and destroys them. You cannot build a soldier without materials. Your immune defense is fundamentally a biological construction project. If you are lacking the bioavailable bricks, the defense falls apart.
That is profound. So if you are someone dealing with constant illness or slow recovery from injuries, your body might literally be begging for higher quality structural materials. But if red meat is our heavy lifting bricklayer, we clearly need other specialized tools in the toolbox. We can't just eat grass-fed beef for every meal of our lives. We have to explore the lean and the fatty, poultry and fish.
Diversity in the nutrient profile is non-negotiable for optimal health. Poultry, like chicken and turkey, offers incredibly high-quality protein but with a significantly lower fat content compared to ruminant meats. It's a highly bioavailable, rapid-digesting source for clean muscle repair.
But then we get to the fish, the fatty fish. Salmon, mackerel, sardines. These are highlighted heavily for their role in providing essential omega-3 fatty acids. Now, we constantly hear about the standard American diet being heavily overloaded with omega-6s. Before we talk about the fish, what does this omega-6 overload actually do to our internal balance?
Well, to understand this, we have to look at the cellular level. Omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids essentially compete for the exact same conversion enzymes in your body. Specifically, enzymes called cyclooxygenases or COX enzymes. While we absolutely need both types of fatty acids to survive, the modern diet is completely skewed. We are highly saturated with omega-6s from cheat seed oils, deep-fried foods, and heavily processed snacks.
So what happens when omega-6 wins that competition? Like, what's the actual fallout?
When omega-6s monopolize those enzymes, they produce signaling molecules called prostaglandins that are intensely pro-inflammatory. They tell the body to swell, to rush blood to areas, to sound the alarm. Now, acute inflammation is good if you cut your finger, but when you are constantly flooding your system with omega-6s, you create a state of chronic systemic inflammation.
Like a biological seesaw that is completely stuck on the inflammatory side. The alarm bell is just ringing 24/7.
Exactly. And that constant ringing manifests as joint pain, chronic fatigue, arterial plaque buildup, and brain fog. Fatty fish are nature's heavy counterweight. By consuming bioavailable omega-3s from wild-caught salmon or sardines, those omega-3s steal the enzymes back. They produce anti-inflammatory signaling molecules. They actively push back against the inflammation, soothing the cellular environment. This directly translates to improved heart health, sharper brain function, and systemic pain reduction.
So it makes total sense why someone would want a wide spectrum of meat choices. You are literally acting as the general contractor of your own biology. You might choose the lean protein of poultry on a Tuesday when you are deeply focused on pure muscle repair without excess dietary fat, and then choose a fatty, wild-caught mackerel on a Thursday to actively douse the flames of systemic inflammation and lubricate your brain.
That's a highly accurate way to view it. You are manipulating your own biochemistry based on what you consume. And once the physical structure is built with those amino acids and the inflammation is managed by the fatty acids, we have to move on to what animates the entire machine.
The spark plugs. The vitamins. If protein builds the structure of the house, vitamins are the electricity that keeps the nervous system and immune system firing. And here's where it gets really interesting. There is a massive focus in the source on vitamin B12 and vitamin D. But the terminology used for B12 is wild. It's referred to as a light metal.
Yeah, the phrase light metal is very deliberate and biochemically literal. B12 is scientifically known as cobalamin. If you look at its molecular structure, sitting right in the center of a complex organic ring is a single atom of the rare earth metal cobalt. You are literally consuming a metallic element that is universally essential for human life.
That is wild. But what is this trace metal actually doing inside the cell? Because I think a lot of listeners know that if you are low on B12, you get tired. But why? What is the actual mechanism breaking down?
Well, without this bioavailable light metal, the consequences are stark. Mechanistically, B12 is the primary catalyst for myelin sheath formation. Myelin is the fatty insulating layer that wraps around your nerves. Think of your nerves like electrical wires. If the rubber insulation strips away, the electricity shorts out. B12 builds that insulation. Without it, you experience deep fatigue, memory issues, numbness in your extremities, and severe mood disturbances because your nervous system is literally short-circuiting.
And it's not just the nerves, right? It impacts the blood too, doesn't it?
Profoundly. B12 is required for the maturation of red blood cells. If you lack B12, your body produces abnormally large, dysfunctional red blood cells that can't carry oxygen efficiently. But perhaps the most critical function of B12 is its role in DNA synthesis.
It's synthesizing our actual DNA.
Exactly. B12 is a key player in a process called methylation, which dictates how your DNA replicates and expresses itself. If you can't synthesize DNA effectively, cellular division and repair at every level of your body simply grind to a halt. Now, the beautiful, elegant thing here is that your body can absorb B12 from red meat, liver, and fish at nearly 100% efficiency. It is perfectly prepackaged in its active form for human absorption.
100% efficiency. So the currency exchange is completely bypassed. It is pure, usable power entering the bloodstream. But then we pivot to vitamin D, which is arguably one of the most critical hormonal compounds in the human body.
Vitamin D is absolutely fascinating because it bridges the gap between vitamin and hormone. It's the only vitamin human beings actually manufacture on their own. When UVB rays from sunlight strike our skin, they interact with a form of cholesterol to synthesize vitamin D. But because most of us live indoors and don't get adequate sun exposure, we are chronically deficient. So we must source it from our diet, primarily from fatty fish, egg yolks, and animal liver.
Now, here's a practical trap a lot of people fall into. Let's say a listener hears this, realizes they are deficient, goes to the store, buys a vitamin D supplement, and washes down a dry, chalky pill with a glass of water on an empty stomach right before bed.
That is biologically useless. You are wasting your money.
Really? Why?
Because vitamin D is entirely fat-soluble. It does not dissolve in water. In order for your intestinal wall to absorb it, the vitamin D must be packaged into tiny droplets called micelles, which are formed by bile salts and dietary fats. If there is no fat in your digestive tract when you consume vitamin D, there's no transport mechanism. It just passes through you.
So pairing vitamin D with a fat-rich meal is basically the only way.
It is mandatory. This is why getting your vitamin D natively from a piece of wild-caught salmon or enjoying it alongside a high-quality grass-fed ribeye steak drastically maximizes its bioavailability. The animal fat literally acts as the molecular transportation vehicle, ferrying the vitamin across the intestinal border. When absorbed properly, vitamin D regulates over 1,000 different genes, optimizes your immune function, heavily reduces inflammation, and regulates calcium absorption for bone density.
It's all starting to interlock beautifully. The fat isn't just calories to be burned, it's a specialized delivery mechanism. The protein isn't just mass, it's the architectural structure. But vitamins need partners to function, which brings us to the great mineral deficit. There are 91 essential minerals humans need to thrive, and unfortunately, modern humans are starving for them.
Yeah, the modern diet is incredibly mineral poor. This is partly due to aggressive monocrop farming depleting the topsoil of its natural mineral density, but it's largely due to our heavy reliance on hyper-processed foods that have had every trace of natural minerals chemically stripped away. We need to zero in on 3 heavy hitters from the source that dictate human vitality: iron, zinc, and phosphorus.
Let's tackle iron first, because there is a massive biological distinction between the iron you get from animals and the iron you get from plants. Let's go back to our currency analogy. The iron from animal products is called heme iron. It is the exact local currency your blood uses. It has a VIP fast pass directly into the bloodstream, absorbing at a massive 15 to 35% rate. Meanwhile, the non-heme iron from plants is foreign currency. It's stuck outside at the exchange counter, waiting to be chemically converted, absorbing at a maximum of just 2 to 20%.
That analogy is perfectly aligned with the biochemistry. Heme refers to a specific structural ring, a porphyrin ring, that contains the iron atom. Our intestinal receptors specifically recognize this intact heme structure and readily swallow it whole into the transport system. Non-heme iron from spinach or lentils lacks this ring. The body has to strip it down, change its electrical charge from ferric to ferrous iron, and hope it doesn't bind to an anti-nutrient like an oxalate before it gets absorbed. It is a slow, highly lossy process.
Why is this VIP access to iron so critical? What happens if we rely on the slow exchange counter?
Iron is the central atom in hemoglobin, the protein in your red blood cells that binds to oxygen. If you are iron deficient, you simply cannot transport oxygen from your lungs to your mitochondria. You are essentially suffocating your cells from the inside out, leading to profound lethargy, pale skin, and an inability to focus. Your engine has no oxygen to combust the fuel.
Wow. And then there's zinc, which the source also refers to as a light metal.
Yes, and its bioavailability from animal sources like red meat, oysters, and poultry is a remarkable 50 to 60%. Zinc is the absolute bedrock of your immune system. It acts as a signaling molecule for immune cells. Beyond that, it is heavily involved in wound healing. If you have a cut that takes weeks to heal, or if you constantly get sick, your cellular machinery is likely starved of bioavailable zinc. It is also required for the proper folding of proteins and, once again, DNA synthesis.
And phosphorus. We don't hear about phosphorus very often.
It's the unsung hero, really. It's found abundantly in poultry and beef, absorbing at an impressive 40 to 70% rate. Phosphorus is essential for the formation of bones and teeth, working hand in hand with calcium. But on a microscopic level, phosphorus is a core component of ATP, adenosine triphosphate.
Oh, the energy currency of the cell.
Exactly. When your cells need energy to contract a muscle or fire a neuron, they break a chemical bond in an ATP molecule, releasing a phosphate group. That snapping of the bond is what releases the energy you feel. Without adequate phosphorus, you literally cannot produce ATP. The overarching theme here is profound. Simply consuming a mineral on a dinner plate does not mean your body can access it. You must respect the biological gatekeepers.
Right. You can do everything right at the grocery store. You can buy the most expensive, ethically raised, grass-fed beef. You can secure the wildest caught Alaskan salmon. You can have a plate pristine with heme iron, B12 light metals, and perfectly balanced omega-3s. And you can take all that 90% bioavailability, all that incredible cellular potential, and you can completely obliterate it in a matter of 5 minutes in your own kitchen.
Ah, yes. This brings us to the incredibly misunderstood alchemy of cooking. The way we apply thermal energy to food fundamentally alters its molecular structure. Cooking is basically applied chemistry, and the methods you choose dictate your nutrient retention.
It sounds like cooking is a biological tightrope walk. You have to apply enough heat to kill pathogens, break down the tough muscle fibers, and make the food palatable, but not so much heat that you incinerate the nutrients. How do we navigate this? Let's start with the oils, because I know there's a massive danger lurking in the pan before the meat even touches it.
The oil you use is critical. We have to talk about smoke points. The smoke point is the exact temperature at which an oil stops shimmering and starts burning, producing visible smoke. You must use fats with very high smoke points. Things like grass-fed butter, clarified butter or ghee, beef tallow, and coconut oil.
What happens if I just use a cheap seed oil or vegetable oil and the pan gets too hot? It just tastes a little burnt, right? Like, what's the big deal?
It is so much worse than a bad flavor. When you push a fragile oil past its limit, you chemically denature the lipid molecules. You literally tear the molecules apart, turning the oil rancid and creating massive amounts of free radicals.
What is a free radical actually doing, though?
A free radical is an unstable molecule that is missing an electron. It is biologically desperate. When you consume it, it travels through your body and violently rips electrons away from your healthy, stable cells to stabilize itself. This is called oxidative stress. It damages your cell membranes, mutates your DNA, and accelerates aging. By using the wrong oil, you are literally turning your healthy, expensive cut of meat into a delivery system for inflammatory agents.
Okay, so the oil matters immensely, but then we have the battle of the cooking methods themselves. Boiling, steaming, frying, grilling. Let's break down the science of each based on the source. Let's say I decide to just boil my chicken to be super healthy and avoid fat.
Well, if you boil or submerge your meat in water, the high heat will successfully break down the collagen and you will retain the highly bioavailable proteins. However, you are going to suffer a massive loss in water-soluble vitamins, specifically things like vitamin C and the B vitamin folate.
Why? What happens to them?
Because they are water-soluble, they literally leach out of the meat tissue and dissolve into the boiling water. And unless you are drinking the water as a broth or soup, you end up pouring a massive portion of your micronutrients straight down the sink drain. Steaming is slightly better because the food isn't fully submerged, so the leaching is minimized, but the high heat of the steam still degrades some of the fragile vitamins.
Okay, so no boiling unless it's a stew. What about frying?
Frying is generally detrimental. The intense, direct, and often uneven heat of frying aggressively destroys heat-sensitive vitamins and forces the proteins to seize up, sometimes making them tougher to digest.
This leaves grilling. And I think culturally, especially in the summer, we view grilling a steak or chicken breast outdoors as the ultimate, primal, healthy way to prepare meat.
Grilling is a fascinating double-edged sword. Interestingly, grilling and roasting can actually enhance the bioavailability of certain non-meat nutrients if you are cooking sides. For instance, the heat breaks down the cellular walls of tomatoes, massively increasing the bioavailability of an antioxidant called lycopene. The same goes for the beta-carotene in grilled sweet potatoes.
So the sides get a boost. But what about the meat itself on the grill?
When it comes to the meat, the extreme charring heat of an outdoor grill, especially when flames are directly licking the flesh, creates highly harmful chemical compounds called heterocyclic amines, or HCAs.
Heterocyclic amines. That does not sound like something I want entering my VIP FastPass system. How do they form?
They form when the amino acids, the sugars, and the creatine naturally present in the muscle meat react together at extremely high temperatures. The blackened, charred bits on your steak or chicken are loaded with HCAs. These compounds are well-documented mutagens. They can literally alter your DNA and increase your risk of cellular mutations.
Okay, this feels like an impossible puzzle. If boiling leaches the vitamins down the drain, frying destroys them with intense heat, and grilling mutates the amino acids into harmful compounds. I mean, how on earth are we supposed to cook this pristine grass-fed beef to maintain that 90% bioavailability?
The optimal solution is actually the most patient one, the low and slow approach. First, you discard modern nonstick pans. Their chemical coatings, like Teflon, can degrade at high temperatures and leach microscopic plastics and forever chemicals into your food. Instead, you invest in a high-quality surgical stainless steel pan or a traditional heavy cast iron skillet.
And the method.
You add a small amount of a stable, high smoke point fat, like grass-fed butter, which also provides the fat needed to absorb the vitamin D we discussed earlier. You place your meat in the pan at a low to medium-low temperature. Then, crucially, you put a lid on it.
Ah, so you're searing it gently, but keeping the moisture completely trapped under the lid.
Precisely. You are essentially creating a protective, temperature-controlled nutritional incubator. The low heat gently unwinds the complex proteins, rendering them highly digestible without ever crossing the threshold into molecular destruction. The lid traps any evaporating moisture, forcing the water-soluble vitamins to condense and fall right back into the food.
Okay, this is incredible. We have essentially engineered the perfect meal. We've sourced the grass-fed beef, ensuring the complete amino acid profile. We've preserved the B12 light metal, the VIP heme iron, and balanced the omega-3s. We've cooked it low and slow in grass-fed butter on surgical stainless steel. Now we arrive at the ultimate physiological payoff. How does this highly specific protocol actually impact the macro systems of our body? Let's talk about the brain first, because the brain is the command center.
Right. The brain is arguably the most nutrient-demanding and metabolically expensive organ in the human body. Despite being only 2% of your body weight, it consumes 20% of your energy. The iron, zinc, and B12 we've been rigorously protecting through our cooking methods are directly linked to elevated cognitive function. Iron delivers the massive amount of oxygen the brain needs to fire its billions of neurons. B12 maintains the myelin sheaths so those signals travel instantly. Zinc modulates how the neurons communicate.
But I want to be clear here, because this isn't just a blanket endorsement of all things meat. The text has a severe warning. There is a dark side to meat consumption if you make the wrong choices.
Absolutely. The biology is highly specific. There is a severe warning regarding processed meats. We're talking about conventional bacon, sheep deli meats, and hot dogs. Regular consumption of these highly processed meats is associated with the significantly increased risk of cognitive decline, memory issues, and even dementia.
But why? If it's still technically pork or beef, what is the mechanism causing the brain damage?
It points directly to the processing agents, specifically the extremely high sodium levels and the synthetic nitrates used to cure and preserve the meat. When synthetic nitrates hit the highly acidic environment of your stomach, they can convert into nitrosamines. Nitrosamines cause severe oxidative damage to the delicate endothelial cells that line your blood vessels.
So they literally damage the plumbing that delivers blood to the brain.
Exactly. It causes vascular microdamage. If the blood vessels in your brain are damaged, oxygen delivery drops, inflammation skyrockets, and cognitive health actively degrades. If you're going to eat deli meats, they absolutely must be nitrate-free. Your focus must fiercely remain on nutrient-dense, structurally intact whole foods.
And speaking of the profound power of nutrient-dense whole foods, this brings us perfectly back to the hook we started the show with. We are living in a moment where popular culture is completely obsessed with GLP-1 weight loss drugs. The Ozempics, the Wegovy's, the Mounjaros. People are spending thousands of dollars to inject themselves with the synthetic compound to suppress their appetite, slow down their digestion, and lose weight. But the biology tells us that we actually have a factory for this exact hormone inside our own bodies.
Wait, so the source is saying we can mimic a weight loss shot with a steak?
Yes. This is where the science feels like a superpower. GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. It is not an artificial invention. It is a vital hormone naturally synthesized and released by specialized cells in our gut, specifically the L cells located in the ileum. Its primary evolutionary function is to constantly monitor what we are digesting. When it senses that we have absorbed sufficient high-quality nutrients, it fires a powerful signal up the vagus nerve directly to the brain's satiety center. It tells you, we have what we need to survive, you can stop eating now. So if we have this incredible natural shut-off valve, why is everyone so constantly hungry? Why is society overeating to the point of relying on pharmaceutical injections?
Because the modern, highly processed diet fundamentally short-circuits the sensory mechanism of the gut. Let's look at a comparative scenario that explains this brilliantly from a study cited in the text. Imagine two groups of people, and we feed them the exact same number of calories, say 1,000 calories.
Right, so the accountant's ledger says they are identical.
Right. Now, Group A eats a 1,000-calorie highly processed meal. Fast food burger, refined sugar bun, French fries cooked in denatured seed oil. Low bioavailability, high inflammation. Group B eats a 1,000-calorie nutrient-dense meal. A grass-fed steak cooked low and slow, wild-caught salmon and vegetables.
The premium, VIP fuel.
Exactly. Now, Group A's processed meal hits their stomach. It is hyper-palatable, but completely devoid of usable micronutrients. It digests rapidly, spiking their blood sugar. Because there are no profound bioavailable vitamins, minerals, or complex amino acids, the L cells in the gut remain relatively quiet. They don't release a strong pulse of GLP-1 because, from a cellular perspective, the body is still starving for actual structural materials.
So they're technically overfed with calories, but completely undernourished on a cellular level. So an hour later, the brain sends the hunger signal again.
Precisely. They enter a cycle of constant ravenous snacking. Now look at Group B, the nutrient-dense group. Their bodies receive a massive, slow-digesting influx of bioavailable complete proteins, fat-soluble vitamins, and heme iron. The L cells in the gut detect the supreme high-quality nourishment. Recognizing that the biological structural needs have been fully met, the gut naturally pumps out a massive wave of its own endogenous GLP-1 hormone.
And what is the result of that natural wave?
The brain receives a profound, lasting signal of satiety. This group feels incredibly full and satisfied. They stay satiated for hours. They eat less frequently throughout the day and effortlessly, without any conscious restriction or willpower. They naturally consume, on average, 500 fewer calories a day.
Let's just pause and do the math on that because the compounding effect is staggering. 500 calories a day. If you extend that over a week, that's 3,500 calories naturally eliminated from your diet, which is roughly the mathematical equivalent of 1 pound of stored body fat. Multiply that over 365 days a year, that's 182,500 fewer calories consumed annually. And they didn't do it by starving themselves, counting points, or taking an injection. They did it simply by changing the biochemical quality and the bioavailability of the food.
It is the ultimate biological hack. You don't need a pharmaceutical intervention to artificially paralyze your stomach or suppress your brain's appetite center. If you simply provide your gut with the bioavailable nutrients it requires to naturally trigger the I'm full signal, you are literally turning your own digestive tract into a naturally self-regulating GLP-1 factory.
That is just incredible. Okay, we have covered some incredibly deep, complex science today. We've traveled through biochemistry, the anatomy of digestion, the competitive pathways of fatty acids, and the molecular alchemy of cooking. Let's distill all of this hard science into an actionable, simple grocery list and lifestyle plan for you, the listener. How do we execute this?
The roadmap is actually incredibly straightforward. Step 1, aim for 2 to 3 servings of highly bioavailable, high-quality meat per week.
And we want to mix that up, right? We aren't just eating identical meals.
Absolutely. Rotate through the biological spectrum. Incorporate lean, pasture-raised poultry for clean, rapid muscle repair. Bring in fatty, wild-caught salmon to secure your omega-3 anti-inflammatory needs. And if you are willing to optimize, incorporate incredibly nutrient-dense options like grass-fed beef liver to completely max out your B12 and iron reserves.
Great. Step 2, master your kitchen environment.
Throw out the cheap, degraded seed oils. Look in your pantry and remove the chemical risks. Stock up on grass-fed butter, ghee, tallow, or high-quality coconut oil. Invest in a surgical stainless steel pan or a heavy cast iron skillet. And adopt the culinary mantra, low and slow. Protect the fragile molecular integrity of your food. Avoid denaturing your vitamins and mutating your proteins with excessive, charring heat.
And step 3, plan your meals architecturally around these crucial micronutrients.
This is a massive mindset shift. Don't just look at a piece of chicken and see a macro number like 30 grams of protein. Look at your plate and ask yourself the structural questions. Where is my B12 for my nervous system? Where is my heme iron for my red blood cells? Where is my zinc for my immune system? If you need zinc, add some high-quality shellfish. If you need B12, add some salmon. And crucially, combine these highly bioavailable meats with nutrient-dense, fiber-rich vegetables. The biological synergy between the healthy fat in the meat and the vitamins in the vegetables ensures maximum absorption across the intestinal wall.
It fundamentally changes your relationship with the food on your fork. As the science beautifully reminds us, a steak or a piece of salmon isn't just a generic lump of calories to fill a void in your stomach. It is highly engineered, biologically complex fuel designed to optimize your muscle tissue, spark your cognitive function, and drive your systemic vitality.
And that is the grounding philosophy we want to impart here. We are steering entirely clear of dogmatic, restrictive, punitive dieting. True health is not about starving yourself into submission. It's about returning to evolutionarily appropriate whole foods, unlocking their vast bioavailability, and finally letting your body's natural satiety and repair mechanisms take the wheel.
Well, we have certainly completely unpacked the science of the skillet today. We want to thank you, the learner, for joining us on this deep dive into the unseen microscopic mechanics of nutrient absorption. We've traveled from the leaky fuel line of low bioavailability, through the foreign currency exchanges of plant iron, survived the oxidative stress of bad cooking oils, all the way to creating a natural, potent GLP-1 hormone factory inside your own gut. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought. Towards the very end of the research we explored today, there was a brief, fascinating mention of the blue zones. These are those rare, isolated regions around the world, places like Okinawa, Japan, or Sardinia, Italy, where humans routinely live vibrant, active, disease-free lives well past 100 years old. The overarching consensus has always been that eating whole, nutrient-dense foods is the proven key to their longevity. But after everything we've unpacked today regarding the sheer, intricate complexity of bioavailability and cellular absorption, it makes you wonder. As global scientists and nutritionists study these incredibly long-living cultures, have we been too focused on simply cataloging the raw ingredients in their pantries? Have we been obsessively writing down their recipes and copying their macronutrients while entirely missing the intricate, almost magical way their bodies are naturally absorbing, extracting, and utilizing every single drop of life from that food? Are we mimicking the plate but failing the cell? Think about that next time you sit down to fuel your body.